"Speak up," the CEO demanded, voice slicing through the silence. Her eyes narrowed, measuring the man standing across the table as he laid out the rebuilt circuit, fingers steady despite the tremor. Papers scattered, his daughter's small stuffed bunny peeking from beneath a folder. Someone leaned forward, breath caught. The CEO snapped, "Explain how you did this. How no one in my division could." He didn't meet her gaze. Instead, he lined up the torn schematic and murmured, "I followed what you overlooked." The room stilled. Even the assistant at the back lowered her phone, and the board director's knuckles whitened on the edge of her chair. Rain drummed against glass, all the city waiting. "You have 60 seconds, the CEO said coldly. He looked at his daughter's bunny, brushed its matted ear with his thumb, then finally raised his eyes. "I never asked for your stage," he said, voice even, "but you built it on my work." The silence was hard, unyielding. "Your moves," she replied, chin lifting with brittle pride. "Some truths wait years to surface. Stay with this story until the very end." It started 4 days earlier, on a Tuesday night just before closing. Graham Carson's hands trembled as he clamped network cables beneath his workbench. The janitorial lights in Wardell Plaza flickered above, catching rain streaks on the window. It was the city's oldest luxury high-rise, but after midnight, no one noticed the marble tiles or velvet armchairs, just the rattle of carts and the hum of fans against storm. Graham checked the terminal's readout again, coaxing dead panels to life with the blunt patience reserved for things falling apart. It was his 16th night this month, harder now with the tremor that had haunted his right hand since a job site accident years ago. A newer tech would have flagged the glitch for day shift, but with deportation officers one floor down, time ran thin, 96 hours before the order expired, and if IT missed another critical system fix, outsourcing would be more than a rumor. Rent came due in 9 days. Sophia's school fees, a scribbled note on the fridge, had dropped to a single question mark. His phone vibrated. Tony, the overnight security, mouthed something behind the glass that the fashion people upstairs wanted him. When Graham reached the penthouse lobby, water dripped from his hair. The double doors swung wide. A half-circle of executives turned as he entered, women and men in sullen grays. In their midst, Claudia Lanier watched through designer lenses, all sharp lines and quiet threat. Her voice was clipped. "You're late. We needed the network up by 7. He set his tool bag down, careful. "Had a panel failure on 15, resolved now." She looked him over, work boots, faded logo shirt. "You can wait outside while we finish. I don't want stray techs in my presentation shots." Her assistant hovered nervously. "Should I?" Claudia cut her off. "No, just escort him out. He can come back when we call him." Graham's jaw ticked once, then he nodded, stepping into the rain-streaked hallway. Water pooled under his soles, somewhere above the muffled echo of party laughter. Behind the glass, Claudia gestured for the slides. "Slide 6, now." He folded his invoice and pressed its edge between thumb and index, counting each breath. Minutes passed, then more. Still no word. He turned back toward the elevator. The night would not get easier. The apartment smelled of old books, takeout, and the lavender oil Sophia dabbed along her pillow's seam. The storm chased them home, speckling her backpack and turning the streets into sharp-edged mirrors. She appeared in the doorway, bunny clutched hard to her chest, one button eye gone, ear stitched by an uneven hand. He set the noodle box on the table. "Extra carrots tonight, that pass." Sophia shook her head, mouth twisting in a practiced adult line. "You always say that when you don't mean it." He blinked, edges softening. "Then you tell me, chef, good enough." She hugged the bunny tighter, peering up. "Do you get tired of having to be so calm?" His breath snagged. He placed chopsticks on the counter, easing himself onto the cracked vinyl chair. "I get tired of cold noodles," he settled for, reaching across the table for her hand. Rain slicked neon outside, coloring the cluttered shelf where her mother's perfume bottle sat, buried behind a tiny homework trophy. The cap hadn't been twisted in months. From the hall closet, he pulled a battered laptop, screen cracked, keys glossy from repairs. He said it inside his daughter's backpack beside the bunny. Sophia watched, eyes huge and unblinking. Are you fixing secrets again? He tried a grin. Some secrets fix themselves. At her insistence, he wrote the nightly note, don't let the bunny boss you around. He tucked it in her lunch tin, same way every night. Her lips pressed tight, then she flopped into his lap, pressing the bunny between them. Silence thickened, warm but uneasy. Can I bring her tomorrow? She asked. I'd prefer you bring pancakes, but yes, Sophia. Her laughter was sleepy, honest. Later in the hush, he watched her sleep, the bunny nestled beneath her chin. A different kind of storm would break by morning. Claudia Lanier's office was a glass and steel fortress overlooking the city's rim. At 2 a.m., she still worked under the cold sweep of pendant lights, tablet flickering with line sheets from Paris and sample requests from Tokyo. An assistant knocked, earning a glance. Schedule the call, no delays. Yes, Miss Lanier. Confirm the color boards with Mario. Already done. Claudia exhaled through her nose, impatience measured. Order the auxiliary servers replaced. Do it now, not in the morning. The assistant nodded and departed. Claudia let her shoulders fall, eyes straying to the corner of the desk, an old photograph turned face down. She reached for it, thumb lingering. Gravel-voiced memories of a little girl, the soft caress of fingers tracing shapes in the air. She scrolled through texts, a medical reminder. Lily, appointment at 9 a.m., her daughter's world, silent, bright, invisible to nearly everyone. Claudia had kept her hidden, even when it meant burying herself in work, shuffling her daughter between trusted aides and round-the-clock tutors, no headlines or inquiries allowed. A knock, the board chair entered, a woman in tailored navy, voice low. Claudia, critical server outage. IT flagged a risk on 13, night tech says fixed, but it's your floor. We want a statement. Claudia's posture altered, mask snapping back into place. There will be no statement. I don't answer for background staff. She tapped the call button. Find out who he is and make sure he never crosses my floor unannounced again. The board chair paused. He might be the reason the system is still online. Claudia dismissed her with emotion. Get me results, not stories. Schedule the tow on the blue sedan now. As the door closed, Claudia smoothed her suit skirt and straightened the photo, just off-center now. The city sparkled, untouchable. She is sleeping. Claudia looked up, her assistant waited, voice soft. Of course, she always is at this hour. Alone again, Claudia listened to the distant hum of servers, each pulse a silent countdown. By morning, Graham was back in Wardell's dim utility substation, pulling wire through conduit, fingers trembling when he forced torque on stubborn connections. The server stack blinked yellow, a critical error message taunted in code. According to protocol, the entire system should be shut down and carted off for contracted specialists. But the silence from the specialist team, no return call, no response, echoed like bad news. Tony, the guard, appeared at the threshold. Management wants this fixed by noon. They said only you are left. Graham knelt, wrists planted on cool concrete. Show me the logs. Tony's hands shook. He offered the clipboard. Just what if you can't? It's not the power array. It's a looping relay in subboard C, Graham said evenly, scanning the daisy-chained circuits. Tony's shoulders lifted. Hope flickered in the crease between his brows. Graham fished components out of the torn server module, lining them up precise. The tremor grew worse with fine work, but his eyes narrowed, focus sharpening into calculation, old habits from days when stakes were measured in seconds and failure wasn't tolerable. With the relay traced and components swapped, he reached for the system's heart, a stripped microcontroller, thought stolen but pushed behind fan coils. In under 16 minutes, the dead server fired off a healthy chime. Systems spun back, boards lit with green nods. Tony's mouth opened, then closed. Supposed to take hours, he breathed. 3 firms failed this month. Claudia swept in, shoes gliding over tile. She didn't slow. Resolved, temporary fix isn't enough, or did we just get lucky? Tony bristled. Graham rose, dusting off his hands. Wasn't luck, it was a missed relay. She tilted her head, dismissive. Anyone observant could see that, but we don't pay for improvisation. Her gaze tracked him wary now. Tony's loyalty edged toward visible. He looked twice at Graham, then over Claudia's shoulder. She'll send you the formal report, Graham said. Nothing you need from me. Claudia blinked, lips parted. Get back to work. As she left, Tony muttered, heard that speech before, years ago. He filed the moment away, eyes haunted. Tony's curiosity was a private flame. Hidden behind the security desk, he dug through the internal employee roster for Graham Carson. The record was thin, a night IT temp, employment start date only weeks old. He scrolled further. A different name flashed in the background check database. G.S. Carter, CTO, Clear Lake Systems, 2011-2017. Archive photo, a younger man in a tailored suit, standing at a ribbon cutting with senators. The face bore a striking resemblance to Graham, though with better posture and tidier hair. A flurry of old news links, whispers of a silent partner forced out after a sabotage claim, a wrongful firing, then nothing. Tony leaned back, his reflection in the security glass seemed less certain. He texted his old friend in licensing, got a single reply, he's not just your average temp, long story. At home, Sophia sorted crayons, arranging them by warmth, one hand always tucked around her bunny. On the cracked kitchen counter, a calendar in her scrawl, 3 more days. She watched her father over the top of cereal, brows furrowed. Is someone making you work more, Daddy? He smiled, pouring coffee so it did slosh. Grown-ups always have more work coming. Sophia blinked, then who hugs them? He froze, spoon dangling midair. The gravity of the question was instant, impossible to dodge. He folded slight, then reached to stroke her hair. Sometimes nobody. Tony called again, urgency plain. They moved up your deadline. Regulatory sweeps Monday. All floor passes will be reviewed. Whatever this is, you need to tell me now. Graham's breath stayed steady. I'll cover my shift. Outside, a corporate sedan idled at the curb. Wardell Plaza's new fixer, Miss Hartley, stepped out, heels slapping water as she searched for Tony. Her voice snapped, you, security, need a word. Tony braced. I just make sure people belong, he said. That's exactly what I need. IT's so full of snoops lately, make sure no one has extra access, she fired back. Tony shrugged, nothing to see except someone fixing your entire system. She glared, corporate doesn't care for heroes, mister. He let her finish the silence. Meanwhile, Graham's time bled away hour by hour. When offered overtime pay, he declined, accepting instead a pass to stay after the shift. Just let me finish this one machine, he had said. Lightning barred the sky as the city pressed inward. Graham was not invisible anymore. Claudia's retaliation started with a single call to his temp agency manager, who overnight found new submissions for Graham's position. Then came a denial for re-entry to the 15th floor, board memo, official stamp, security risk. Hours later, Graham arrived at the school to find Sophia's name flagged. Tuition incomplete. Please provide updated status. The principal's gaze was sharp and short. We're sorry, but policy is policy. Inside Wardell, the mockery wasn't subtle anymore. Claudia, in front of the design team, waved a sheaf of printed emails. This is what happens when you try to overstep. Some people just don't understand where they don't belong. No one laughed, but no one left either. Graham's restraint lived in his hands as he folded a napkin into a crane, placing it on the boardroom buffet table. He watched Claudia, not blinking. Tony found him later in a service stairwell. You need to get out, she's calling in a regulatory probe, fast track. I overheard them talking SEC. Your pass expires tonight. Graham considered, then unlocked his phone, voice flat. This is Graham, yes, you can come now. Down the hall, Sophia faced a different consequence. At lunch, a classmate jeered at her bunny. Is that the only friend you have? Sophia hugged it tighter and said, she's quiet, but she always stays. None of the adults heard. He should not have made this her problem. The announcement went out citywide. Press conference, 10 a.m., Wardell's largest boardroom. Claudia's team lined the entrance. Assistants ushered select board members to plush seats. Reporters crowded around, screens buzzed on. Tony escorted Graham down the back corridor, cleaner, pressed shirt, a corporate watch visible on his wrist, hair combed for the first time in weeks. He held Sophia's bunny gently in one hand. She'd insisted he keep her safe for luck. Claudia began crisply, "Today, we reaffirm the integrity of the Wardell brand. Recent rumors regarding system failures are unfounded." Graham entered uninvited, but someone had tipped off the press. Heads turned, the board chair rose, raising a folder. "Before we continue," she said coolly, "I'd like to share a finding." She slid a newspaper forward, yellowed, a decade old. The headline, "Local CTO cleared of wrongdoing in sabotage case." The picture showed a younger Graham, the story beneath stamped official. Murmurs flew across the room. Claudia stiffened. "This is irrelevant," she snapped. The board chair disagreed. "Mr. Carson, can you explain how, as a night technician, you managed to rebuild our core system, essentially from memory, after external teams failed?" Eyes everywhere, Graham set the bunny on the table, circuit diagrams clutched in his other hand. He paused, voice measured. "I followed what you overlooked. This was designed to fail unless you understood the sequence. The OEM missed it." A distant, muffled gasp. The assistant at the wall lowered her phone. Claudia's jaw twitched, color sliding from her temples downward. Her chest rose and fell under her suit. "Mr. Carson," someone said, "we found this article this morning. You didn't mention your previous role." He looked her straight in the eye. "I never asked for your stage," he said quietly, "but you built it on my work." The silence that followed was dense, absolute. Tony couldn't look away. The board director's knuckles gripped the chair. A reporter's pen went still. Claudia searched for an answer, reaching for the edge of the table. None came when she opened her mouth. He glanced one last time at Sophia's bunny, then added, "Your move." A single beat, nobody breathed. 6 months passed. The city's heartbeat was gentler now, less fevered, less insistent. Sophia's school lunchbox bore a new note each morning. Today, "Be kind first." The bunny traveled with her everywhere, one button eye now patched with blue felt. Tony, now director of security, nodded when he passed Graham, who walked the halls freely, wounds mostly hidden. Claudia's name vanished from the company masthead, only a brief mention in the trades, resigned following regulatory audit. On social media, a photograph surfaced, her hand over her daughter's, the crowd's noise dampened out. For now, she was just a mother. On the way home from school, Sophia kicked a pebble down the sidewalk and asked, "Does being brave mean you never shake?" Graham crouched beside her, hands steady even as the old tremor fluttered at the edge. "No, it means you stay anyway." She grinned, contrasting socks askew, old bunny in tow. Later, as dusk pressed against the window, Graham watched her play. The city's noise softened. Strength and truth weren't trophies, they were survival, work quietly done and often denied. Sometimes the truest thing is what you rebuild when no one is watching. And sometimes you discover the world was already waiting for you to step into the light. It was late in spring, streets swelling with rain that never quite stopped, when Graham found himself outside the new IT office. No longer a basement closet, but a corner room with 2 windows, plants curling on the sill. Tony stood behind him, hands thrust in the pockets of a suit at once too boxy and too official for someone who still thought of doors as old friends. "Big day," Tony offered. Graham moved to the window, the city below him in miniature. He answered, "Feels like someone else's life." "You earned it," Tony said, pointed and brief, as if worried more words might jinx the fragile order they'd all constructed. But before Graham could say thank you, there were footsteps in the hall, a thrilled chorus in Sophia's familiar shoes and softer ones beside her. "Daddy, you forgot your ginger candies," Sophia called, voice clear. Her backpack thudded as she hurried in. Behind her toddled Lily, Claudia's daughter, led by the hand and carrying a lunch satchel with comics drawn on every inch. "Hi, Mr. Carson," Lily said, carefully signing hello as well. Her hair was a mass of rain-flattened curls. Graham smiled, signing back, "Good morning, Lily." Sophia handed him a paper twist of candies, eyeing the traffic below. Did you know there's a pigeon's nest out there? They're so brave, they just build and build. He crouched, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Is that what you're both doing in school, building things? Mostly, sometimes just getting through, Sophia replied. She exchanged a look with Lily, something private, formed in the endless patience that children offer one another when adults falter. Claudia arrived in the doorway, umbrella dripping on her boots. She wore no makeup, hair slack against her cheek. There were circles under her eyes, but her expression was open, softer now that the company no longer needed armor. I hear these two are campaigning for longer lunch breaks, Claudia said, and for juice only, no water ever. Lily giggled and hid behind Sophia, grinning. Graham straightened, searching Claudia's face for some fragment of old rivalry, old pain. He found only exhaustion and something almost apologetic. Claudia hesitated. Sophia left her sketchpad in my car last time. It has blueprints for, what is it, girls? A bunny-powered rocket. Solar, not rocket. Rockets are loud, Sophia clarified. Bunnies are quiet. Tony covered a smile. With the price of fuel, they might have a point. Claudia stepped inside, setting Sophia's sketchpad and Lily's earmuffs on the table. Thank you, she said, her gaze steady, for everything. It hung between them, years of rivalry, the ambition that had bulldozed and then unraveled everything. But the bitterness was tangled with gratitude now, complicated, human. Graham let the silence stretch. He looked to the girls, who returned to the window, narrating a battle of paper cranes. Finally, he said quietly, I still remember the night you doubled my workload and told me I couldn't belong. Sometimes you lose track of what you can forgive. Claudia's mouth pressed flat. She didn't turn away. Whatever came before hurting you, taking your ideas, shutting you out, I was wrong, I know that now. There was no applause, just the city's hum and the girls' laughter at the glass. From down the corridor, a chime sounded. A new assistant entered, nervous, stacking forms. Mr. Carson, there's a request for your review. Someone from Clear Lake wants to. Graham waved her off. Tomorrow it'll wait. The assistant nodded and withdrew. Tony checked his watch. If you want your office to stay tidy, let the girls tour management. Security's not what it used to be, he teased, stepping aside as Lily and Sophia led a parade past stray files and a sleepy office dog. Claudia watched them go. You know, I thought the world ended when I left the company, but all I did was step out of one room and into another that had my daughter in it. Graham considered this. The unlit spaces, the hours spent hidden, so much wasted on proving worth to people whose opinions had never really changed. It never ends, does it? It just begins differently. He looked away, a rueful half-smile. The rain had sharpened again, ribbons of water carving paths on the glass. Claudia frowned, following his gaze. Do you ever regret fixing things? He shook his head. No, the fixing never, only the silence afterward when nobody cared who had done the work. She leaned her elbow on the filing cabinet, a rare surrender. Sometimes I wish I'd asked who was holding it all together. Footsteps and laughter echoed from the hall. Sophia waved a paper rocket overhead, shrieking as the office dog leapt to catch it. Lily followed, her arms thrown wide. Graham sighed, gentle now. They'll never worry about silent work, I hope. They'll know who made it possible, Claudia said, voice warm with something like pride. Time unspooled, moments slanting with dusk and fresh hope. A week later, Graham stood in Wardell Plaza's garden, eating sandwiches with Tony and watching Sophia practice her speech for the school assembly. My hero is my dad because he fixes things nobody else can fix, even hard things, even when he's sad or tired. The parents in the folding chairs clapped, kindly, uncertain what pain or pride they were applauding. Afterwards, Sophia picked dandelions along the walkway and pressed one into his palm. I think these are wishes, not weeds, don't you? He nodded, definitely wishes. Can you fix a wish? She challenged. Only by making one, he replied. Tony grinned, hands deep in his jacket pockets. That's the smartest answer I've heard on these grounds. A bee dusted past. They watched, quiet, as it vanished into a hedge blooming late with orange and cream trumpet flowers. On Sunday, Graham returned to his old apartment for the last time. The lease was up, the walls stripped of toys, books boxed for the new place. He knelt by Sophia's now empty bed, finding a final note in her childish script. "Don't let the bunny boss you around." He smiled, folding it into his wallet. Rain rattled the window. He walked to the kitchen, sat on the counter, and closed his eyes. There was nothing left to mend but memory. His phone buzzed, a new email from Clear Lake, subject line, consultant proposal. An invitation to return, advisory only, independent status, generous terms. He set it aside. The city waited, full of broken and hopeful things. Newness came slow, the move, the bright living room filled with light, the kitchen where Sophia danced while he cooked. Tony visited, always bringing borrowed tools and news of which server was sulking next. One Friday evening, Claudia arrived with Lily and a chess set. "You promised to teach her," she insisted. "Only if Sophia promises not to distract me," Graham joked. Sophia rolled her eyes. "Dad, you'll lose even if I don't." They laughed, setting up the pieces, Lily giggling as Graham pantomimed despair at each move. Claudia watched, content just to be present, untethered from the endless race. When Lily toppled a bishop by accident, Claudia caught her hand, leveling her gaze at Graham. "You're a good father." He blinked, surprised by the softness. "Took me a while to get here," he said. "You never stopped showing up." Chess ended in giggles and a pile of toppled queens. They let the children roam to the balcony, where dusk painted the skyline and rain clouds bruised the sunset violet. Claudia stood at the window. "We were both wrong, you and I," she said quietly. Graham met her eyes. "Wrong about what?" "About what mattered. I thought it was power. You thought it was hiding what you'd built." She shook her head. "Turns out it's only ever about who you lift with you, no one else." He listened as thunder skirted the horizon, like a promise. Sophia and Lily pressed their palms to the glass, faces lit by the gold of city lights. Somewhere, a siren sang in the distance, urgent and lonely, but not for them. Tony knocked at the open door, hat in hand. "We still on for game night next week?" Sophia cheered, "Only if there's pizza." Lily added with shy confidence, "And a movie after, please." Tony laughed. "Who am I to say no?" Later, when families drifted home and the apartment quieted, Graham stood on the balcony, feeling the air clean and damp. Sophia slept inside, Bunny curled under her chin, one ear straight, the other listing. He watched the city, its bruised towers, drenched streets, new hope gleaming between the cracks. He remembered how silence could haunt, how sometimes it is broken only by necessity or crisis, but also how, in the end, the ones who remain are the ones who care enough to start again together. The next morning dawned blue bright, storms spent. Graham packed Sophia's lunch and wrote her note. "Brave is showing up even when you're scared." He slipped it beside her snack, tucked the bunny into her elbow, and watched as she strolled down the hall to meet Lily and the others. He lingered in the doorway, breathing in the hush after rain, a world washed clean. Claudia sent him a photo later. Sophia and Lily side by side at the playground, hands smudged with chalk, sunlight fizzing off their hair. The caption read simply, "They asked if bunnies could fly." He texted back, "They already do." For a long while, nobody asked for heroics, only for showing up. School drop-off, work solved by listening, not solving, dinners messy but full of laughter. And on the days when his hand trembled, when old doubts circled or loneliness pressed too close, Graham remembered there was nothing left to prove. He'd survived vindication, exile, storm, and the slow work of returning. On those evenings, he would watch Sophia sleep and know that worth was in the mending, in the note next to the sandwich, "The small brave acts no stage ever sees." Even the silent things, he realized, can change the world. And in quiet corners of server rooms, of classrooms, of new homes and old regrets, sometimes the smallest hands, the patient hands, continue to build and build until the light comes through at last. In June, Sophia finished her last day of school with a paper crown taped crooked over her hair. She dragged her father, who was only pretending to protest, through the corridors to hang her drawing on his new office door, a family of bunnies building bridges under a gentle rain. Lily and Claudia followed, arms full of end-of-year cupcakes, and Tony lingered by the elevator, shouldering their extra bags. "Careful with the icing, that's my dinner," Tony called, dodging as Sophia giggled and swiped a smear across his sleeve. Graham stooped to Sophie's level, offering her a conspirator's smile. "You think the building manager will mind your art out here, chef?" Sophia grinned, her confidence surer now. "He said it was a welcome addition to executive decor," she announced, mimicking Tony's deep voice. Lily giggled and signed to Claudia. Graham watched as Claudia interpreted, gentler now with her child, and caught Graham's gaze with a look of shared understanding. Beneath everything, it was always about the children, the next step forward. Cupcakes were distributed, sticky fingers everywhere. Claudia leaned against the doorframe next to Graham, both of them watching the girls dot sprinkles on each other's noses. "I have a new job," Claudia said at last, not quite meeting his eyes. "Nonprofit, accessibility tech devices for children mostly, not so many boardrooms or projections, more field trips." There was pride in her voice and also a tremor, a familiar uncertainty Graham recognized in himself. "Congratulations," he said. "They're lucky to have you." She drew a careful breath. "I wouldn't have had the courage to leave, not until someone forced me to see what I'd lost myself to." Her glance at Lily was fierce and soft both. "You saved me, Graham, not out of mercy, just by refusing to disappear." He shook his head. "We saved ourselves, sometimes that's all you get." He reached out, gently brushing a stray strand of hair from Sophia's crown. "New beginnings come as leftovers, but they feed you all the same." Tony bustled up, clapping Graham on the back. "Speech in the lobby, Chief. They expect an inspirational sentence at least." He winked at Sophia, now regal in her bunny crown. "Count us in." Sophia leaped to her feet, hand in Lily's, announcing, "Dad, you have to say something about quiet people and fixing broken things." She looked up, serious. "And bunnies." A ripple of laughter, Claudia's, Tony's, even Graham's, hesitant at first, ran through the group. They gathered as a small, odd parade and walked together to the bright lobby, Sophia leading, the girls bringing sun and color everywhere they went. At the center of the polished floor, Graham faced the company he'd once built and lost, the friends he'd found along disaster's edge, the family that had formed somewhere in the aftermath. He cleared his throat, his hand shook only a little. "I used to think worth was in being recognized, in never faltering, in keeping silent even when you were falling apart. But it isn't," he said, eyeing Sophia and Lily as their faces shone up at him. "Worth is in showing up, in fixing things nobody sees, and in building something new, together, even if your hands tremble, even if you're afraid, and sometimes in letting bunnies help." The laughter was gentle, the applause real. Afterward, as the crowd thinned, Sophia slipped her hand into his. "Did you ever wish for this?" she whispered. He thought of silence, storms, and the thousands of lonely repairs. Then he smiled, tears not quite falling. "I never dared, but I think I was building it anyway." They stood there as rain pooled outside, the city's light catching in Sophia's wild hair and Lily's laughter, in Tony's easy strength and Claudia's redemptive grace. Tomorrow would come, with its work and worry, its quiet fixes and small unexpected joys. But tonight belonged to the builders, to those who'd survived and chosen again. And out in the city, somewhere not far away, it was still raining. But now, at last, someone listened for the quiet work and what it might become.